Every country on Earth gets its drinking water from rivers, dams, or underground wells. Bermuda gets 67% of its home freshwater from rain landing on rooftops. And that's not some old habit, it's the law. Every building must have a white stepped roof built to catch water, matched with an underground tank big enough to hold it. No other country uses rooftops as its main water system, and no other country has kept one going for 350 years in a row. Bermuda's white roofs are a clever piece of design that hides a big problem. Nearly 90% of the tanks under them are dirty with bacteria, and the rain patterns the system needs are moving in the wrong direction. How an island with no natural freshwater built the oldest rain-catching system on Earth, and why it might not last another 50 years. About 650 miles east of North Carolina, sitting alone in the middle of the Atlantic, you'll find Bermuda. Most people think it's in the Caribbean, and most people are wrong. 54 square kilometers of land, 21 square miles total, packed with over 3,000 people per square mile, one of the most crowded places on Earth. And across all of it, zero fresh water. The rock underneath tells you why. Bermuda sits on top of a dead volcano that blew about 33 million years ago, but that volcano wore down below sea level by 20 million years ago. What sticks above water today is a layer of limestone, wind-blown sand that turned to stone over millions of years. NASA has called Bermuda the only atoll in the Atlantic Ocean, and the limestone under it is full of tiny holes that let rain pass straight through instead of pooling. No rivers form, no lakes show up, no streams run anywhere. Thin bands of fresh groundwater do sit underground, floating on top of heavier salt water, but this water is salty and easy to spoil. Bermuda made it against the law to drink well water without a license from the minister. Over 3,000 homes still use private wells, but only for flushing toilets and watering plants. With no drinkable groundwater and no water on the surface, the question is simple. Where does the fresh water actually come from? The answer is right above your head. English settlers first showed up in 1609 after the Sea Venture, the lead ship of the Virginia Company, crashed into Bermuda's reefs during a hurricane. Permanent settlement came in 1612, and those early colonists put up buildings with cedar frames and palmetto leaf roofs, materials that were no good at all for catching water. What changed everything was something they noticed about the local stone. When you first dug it out of the ground, you could cut it with a handsaw because it was that soft. Once it sat in the open air though, the water inside dried out and the stone hardened into something much tougher. For an island with barely any trees, this was a building material that almost designed itself. People were slow to switch at first. A 1687 head count found only 29 stone roofs out of 579 houses on the islands. Most buildings still had thatch. By the 1700s, limestone roofs became normal for two reasons that happened to line up perfectly. They stood up to hurricanes and they caught rain. White lime wash sealed the surface. Settlers burned limestone in ovens, mixed it with water and brushed it onto roofs, and the high pH of that coating gave it germ-killing properties. The coating that kept water out was also partly cleaning the rainwater as it ran across, which is a detail most stories about Bermuda's roofs skip right over. By 1901, a government count had found 237 quarries and 90 lime kilns running across the islands, the working backbone keeping this whole system going. Carter House, built in the 1680s and named after a Sea Venture shipwreck. Survivor still stands with its first limestone roof. Over 340 years old, and honestly, when you look at it, the building barely shows its age. The way these roofs work deserves a closer look, because the stepped shape that makes Bermuda's skyline so easy to spot isn't there for style. Each stone tile measures about 1 inch thick, 10 to 12 inches long, and 8 inches wide. Builders lay them in rows that overlap from the bottom edge to the top, then spread mortar over the tops and sides to lock everything into one solid, heavy piece. Along the lower edges, they carve wedge-shaped limestone blocks called glides, roughly 4 by 4 by 18 inches, which work as built-in gutters that push water toward pipes set inside the walls. Those steps you see on every roof act like tiny dams when it pours. Each one slows down the water running across the surface so it doesn't shoot past the gutters and get lost. Without that stepped shape, heavy rain would just run off the sides and most of the drinking water would end up on the ground. Side note, the steps also make it way easier to walk on the roof when you're painting, which matters because Bermudians repaint their roofs often with a special stretchy coating that the chief medical officer has to approve since it touches drinking water. They put it on with an oversized brush stuck on an 8-foot pole called a staff, and the local saying, "I staffed my roof today," just means you spent hours up there painting in the heat. Not a fun day. Rain hits the white surface, flows down the steps, moves through the glides, drops into the pipes and lands in underground tanks. A normal modern tank holds around 17,000 gallons, and over 21,000 of them sit beneath buildings across the island. None of this is a choice. Bermuda's laws spell out exactly what every building must do. The Public Health Act of 1949 and the Water Storage Rules of 1951 set everything up. 80% of every roof must have gutters to catch rain. Tank size must hit 100 gallons for every 10 square feet of roof area. Cleaning has to happen at least once every 6 years. Tanks can't go under bathrooms or kitchens. Get caught breaking the rules and you're looking at a $168 fine the first time, $420 for repeat offenses, plus roughly $34 for every day the problem stays. Every new building permit in Bermuda needs roof sizes and tank details before anyone can start building. 55.5 inches of rain falls per year, spread out pretty evenly across all 12 months at about 5 inches each, and that's what feeds the system. A house with 1,360 square feet of roof area catches around 94 imperial gallons per day, and the average person uses just 30 imperial gallons daily. To put that in context, Americans use 80 to 100 gallons indoors alone. 67% of home freshwater comes from rooftop collection. Piped water only reaches about 10% of the people, and 64% of homes have no well and no pipe connection at all, counting only on their tank plus water trucks when things dry out. 41 licensed truckers carry 800 to 900 gallons per load at roughly $100 a trip. The 2009 drought showed what happens when the system hits its wall. Yearly rainfall dropped to just 40.5 inches, the lowest anyone had recorded, and lines of water trucks backed up across the island. Drought, though, isn't the scariest weak point. That belongs to what's living inside the tanks. Scientists in 2008 checked 102 randomly picked household tanks and found bacteria in about 90% of them. E. coli turned up in 66%. Their published finding was blunt. Roof-caught rainwater should not count as high-quality drinking water. The 2016 study tracked one path of the problem to Bermuda's wild chicken population, which passes salmonella to pigeons and lizards that walk across rooftops before droppings wash down into tanks below. Bermudians deal with about 1 round of stomach sickness per person per year based on survey numbers, but out of 861 people asked, not a single one thought their drinking water was to blame. That gap between what the tests show and what people believe is, to put it lightly, not great. Government advice says to add 2 to 4 ounces of household bleach per 1,000 gallons every 3 months. Most people don't bother. People who grew up drinking tank water their whole lives may have built up some resistance. But for babies, newcomers, and anyone with a weak immune system, the danger is real and it's constant. Weather forecasts pile more pressure on a system already stretched thin. Total yearly rainfall might actually go up by about 7%. But it's shifting toward bigger storms with longer dry gaps between them, which is the worst possible mix for catching rain off roofs. A heavy storm fills a tank to the top in minutes, wasting every drop that spills over, and then weeks with no rain drain what's left. Underground freshwater layers face their own crisis as rising seas push saltwater into the ground. Events that cause this saltwater push are expected to jump 11-fold by 2050. Taller buildings make the math worse too, because adding a second family to a building made for one doubles the water use without adding a single extra square foot of roof. Bermuda has started adding modern tools on top of the old system. 6 water cleaning plants that turn seawater into fresh water now make around 13,500 cubic meters per day. A 3 million gallon storage tank went up in 2022. Officials are finally writing rules for private water sellers who ran their businesses for decades with no oversight at all. What changes the way you see this whole story, though, isn't the design or the law or even the bacteria numbers. Every homeowner in Bermuda runs their own water system. They keep the roof surface clean, watch tank levels, and manage how much their household uses against a supply that falls from the sky. That hands-on responsibility creates something rare, a whole population that actually knows where its water comes from and what it costs to waste it. When Hurricane Irma smashed into Turks and Caicos in 2017, with winds past 175 miles per hour, 10 Bermuda-style roofs put up there were the only roofing type to take 0 damage. Insurance companies across the Bahamas now cut prices for buildings using this design. Countries from Australia to Kenya to Brazil have put rain-catching rules into their building codes, but not one of them makes it the main drinking water source for an entire population. Bermuda is the only one that does. No rivers feed it, no lakes fill it, no streams cross it. White roofs, limestone steps, and underground tanks have handled the job since the 1600s, making the most well-known skyline in the Atlantic something much bigger than a pretty picture. Without those roofs, nobody lives there. It's that simple. Bermuda figured out how to stay alive on an island with no fresh water at all. There's a country that pulled off the opposite trick, keeping millions of people going in a place that gets almost no rain. That story is right here.